Hi, welcome back. In this part we're going to take a look at making the legs, which will fit on the side of our cabinet here and then under our decorative trim. Not sure if you can see it well enough on this reference image, but the inside of these legs appear to be actually hollow, and this part at the bottom is the full round. So I would imagine that this top cabinet is actually balanced on these legs. These are acting as sort of something to support the weight. So let's go ahead and make that, and I'm going to start with a polycylinder, and I'm just going to get this to roughly the right size. I mean, as we've said, we can always adjust later on. So let's just scale up until I find a size that I'm sort of happy with. And you might have noticed I have introduced a ground plane here. That's just to give me an indication of how long the legs would be, so I don't, go under the ground plane. And actually this is probably much easier in the top view. There we go. Let's get this leg, so it's just bisecting the table there. There we go. And then let's have a look to see if it's actually wide enough. And I think that's a bit skinny. So once again we can come back and we can sort of scale. Okay, so let's check this. And that looks to be about the perfect width, maybe a little bit too fat, but we can always change that. Okay, there we go. That looks about perfect, really. Let's check the reference again. Yeah, they're not exactly ginormous legs, so I think we're good. Tiny bit bigger. All right, so I'm going to cut this out. I'm going to cut this into 1/4. I'm going to cut out of it so it produces an L shape at the back. In fact, this is probably much easier if I just go ahead and do this. But because I want to cut 1/4 of it out, my polycylinder at the moment has 20 subdivision axes, and I want it to have 24. Simply because I want to cut 6 pieces out, and 6 now is 1/4, whereas before 5, of course, would have been 1/4. So let's get a face mode, and let's just cut out. In fact, let's cut the right 6 pieces out. So it doesn't actually matter, but I just want 3, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I just want to, as I said, cut this into 1/4, which would be there. There we go. Okay, just double check that. Okay, so what I would do is cut 1/4 out like so, and then fill this in so it's got sort of an L cut into it. But before I do that, I want to actually duplicate the object. So Control D, and then scale this down. So it doesn't matter what scale at the moment, just pulling it out of the way. And then we want to cut, once again, 6 of these. So if I just go back to face mode, my selection is still active. I can just hit delete. Okay, so now I've got this sort of hollow pipe. Okay, I want to bring this piece down. So let's go back to object mode and select this one. I want to bring this down towards the floor. But I can see that this is too long, so let's set vertex on this and just pull them up through the floor plane. There we go. So what I'm using this piece for is this will be the round leg. So on our reference, we've got the top part of the leg has an L cut into it, but the bottom part of the leg is still completely round. So to achieve that, I've built 2 identical objects, and what I'm going to do is now get rid of the faces on this one that I don't need. So realistically, it's the opposite faces. Okay, so delete. And I'm probably not going to need those. I'm definitely not going to need, should I say, these inside faces either, because we don't want 2 sets of faces stacked up on top of each other. Okay, a little awkward in the selection there, and delete. And I don't need any of these bottom faces. Okay, and there are, of course, other ways to do this. Some of them would be easier, but I just wanted to take this opportunity to show you how you could take 2 objects like this and attach them together to form a more complex shape. So let's move this down, and we want to be fairly accurate about the placement of this. We want to get it on the bottom. which the bottom of the leg already has faces, which is why we deleted these bottom faces. So let's flip into our 4 view. I'm just pressing F to focus the camera so I can get a good look here, and let's pull this down until it meets the bottom of the leg. Okay, so we now still have two separate objects, but as you can see, I would have one base that was round and one with an L cut into it. So in order to make this one object, I'll go Mesh, Combine. Now that's not going to make it one object. That's just going to make it so when I select it, it selects as one object. But to be honest with you, if I smooth this right now, you can see that this is not actually attached to this. So what we need is to just merge the vertices of this piece to this piece. We need to merge all these bottom verts. In fact, if we come in here, we can actually see where my spacing wasn't that good. So if I go to Vertex and just merge these together, so I'm going to use the shelf, okay, and then just G to repeat. And don't worry, these are a little uneven, but we'll straighten them out in 2 secs. And G and G and G. So now they're all merged together. Let's select them all. In fact, that bottom one will probably need merging too, and now I've disappeared under the floor. So let's come in here, a bit of an awkward selection, and just merge this too. Okay, so that should be all those bottom verts merged together. Select them all, press R to scale, and just scale them all in towards each other. And now they should all be exactly the same. If I look in the side view here, they're all straight, basically. Okay. So even though we were a little inaccurate on our original placement of the object, it doesn't take a lot to come back and straighten them up later. Now, I'm also going to need to connect this vertex to this tube here, but I can't because there's nothing to connect it to. So let's rectify that. Let's add in a edge loop. Okay, and once again vertex mode, Q to clear that tool, and just merge. So you can also use the marking menus for this. Merge verts. Merge verts, it doesn't matter which way you do it, whichever way you feel is faster for you, and G to repeat the same command. Okay, now these actually are one object. But we see, so when I smooth now, there's not a big hole, well there is here, but there's not a big hole between these two because they're one piece. Alright, now a couple of problems become immediately evident. When I have a look around this, you can see that this looks a different color from this. This is due to the fact that this will have a hard edge along it where we joined it together, and in fact we can visualize that by going to display polygons, and you should see soft hard edges. Alright, so everything that's dotted is a soft edge and everything that's solid is a hard edge. Now I would expect at the moment this to be a hard edge and this to be a hard edge along the bottom. As you can see, all the edges along this tube are actually soft, except for these two. So we need to come in, select edge mode, F10, select them both, and we just want to go to normals, soften edge. Okay, now if I have a look around it again, you can't actually see any difference between the two pieces now. Alright, so if you ever see that large discrepancy between two bits you've joined together, make sure that you don't have any either hard edges in the wrong place or any soft edges in the wrong place, which you can get on display polygons, soft and hard edges. I'm just going to turn this back to standard edges now. It's just easier to see what I'm doing. And now I need to fill in this L-shaped gap. And again, there are a few ways to do this. You could select all these edges and fill the hole, and or you could bridge across this way or bridge across this way. It's up to you. I'm going to select the edges here and the other edge down here, and I'm just going to bridge. Alright, that's bridge should be linear and number of divisions 0. And then I'm going to select this edge here and this edge all the way up here, and I'm going to press G to bridge again, and once again I'm just going to turn that to linear and 0. Okay, now we use the bridge, so it probably merged the vertices for us, but let's check. So let's click here and see what happens when we move this one. The whole top moves, so that means all those verts in the middle there are merged together. And let's just check this one. Yeah, bridge normally gets this right, but it never hurts to double check everything. And this one here might be a problem. It is. Now the problem we're experiencing here, let's just make sure. Oh no, actually it's absolutely fine. So for once Maya did its job completely correctly and we have no cleanup to do. So now we've got this leg shape which can be so pivot's probably miles away. Let's center the pivot. We've got this leg shape which can now be pushed into the corner of the cabinet like so. It doesn't bisect the geometry, but more importantly it will leave a gap between the leg and the main body of the cupboard. Now if we refer to the reference, you can see there is a definite gap here between the cupboard and the main body of the leg. And the problem with just sort of taking this and shoving it inwards, so you know, we get a bisection, is that doesn't render well sometimes. So we wouldn't get that distinction between the leg and the cupboard, which is exactly what we were looking for. So, you know, if we look at it from this angle as well, obviously you need to space it out correctly. Okay, we'd also be looking for a gap between the cupboard and the leg on this side too, which by creating that L shape is exactly what we get. So, a few other things that I wanted to do with this. First off, this sort of hole is now in the wrong position. What this hole is for is to rest this whole top cabinet on. So let's create the verts here and scale upwards till it's the right size. Okay, now we've got a piece of furniture that's actually resting on this hole here. And what we happen to have now is a good leg. Okay, but we're not quite finished yet, because if we come in here and try and smooth this leg, which we probably would do with a round object, then it all goes a bit wrong. So we're going to need to put those control edges in, and this is where something that's up until this point has been quite simple can become quite a pain in the backside. So let's just put an edge loop in at the top. That will hold the top edge so it won't, you know, go, and we'll need to put another one of those at the bottom, of course. Okay, so now this thing will hold its basic shape. So if I smooth it now, you know, it holds its basic shape from this direction, but not so much from this direction. So we're going to have to put some edge loops in to hold this L together. And an easy way to do that is to go back here and come in here, and obviously we're going to need one round here. And one round here. Now for us, we're also going to need to put some edge loops in here, which is where it can get a little tricky. This is where you can end up with some bad geometry. So let's check out what we've got here. And what we've got, first of all, the triangles, which I said before are honestly no great disaster, especially here where this piece is never actually going to be seen. But we can, you know, do a little better just for the sake of the tutorial. So let's go back to object mode. And let's go to the interactive split tool, or the split poly tool, depending on which version of Maya you're on or which you prefer. And let's just create an edge around here. Okay, so now all of these are quads, but all of these are still triangles. Now, easy way to fix it would just be to go to edge mode, F10, and select these edges here and delete them. Okay, no, wrong edges. I want this one, yeah, my mistake, this one and this one, and delete. Okay, now these are quads. They've got 1, 2, 3, 4 sides, and these are also quads. Okay, so that just gives us a little bit of better geometry. Honestly, in this case, it wouldn't make that much difference, but, you know, while we're here. And I want to put an edge here, and also here, which will hold this middle section together. So let's smooth now, and we're slightly better, but we're still, you know, quite nasty down here. Okay, so we're just going to have to go and keep retopologizing this area until we get it right. So the first thing I can see wrong is that if we go down here, we're going to be left with some nasty geometry which we'll have to clean up. So let's, first things first, just use the split poly tool to connect to here, and let's press G to do that again, which will connect us to here. Okay, and I'd also like to run an edge loop around. Hang on, sorry about this folks, my mouse seems to be having a bit of a conniption. There we go. I'd also like to run a loop all the way around here. Okay, so just press G to get the split poly tool back up, and in fact I'll run it out all the way from this edge. And okay, so now I've got a control edge around here, but that's left us again with some triangles. It's left us with some n-gons. So if we just take a look at what our smooth looks like now, you'll probably see some pinching down here, and probably this won't look excellent. As you can see, it does not. It's not bad. I mean, to be honest with you, I would be very, very tempted to call that a day if I was making this one of my own projects, because, you know, no one's ever going to see it. But let's get it right just because we can. So let's focus in on this middle bit here that's a little broken. Okay, and the first thing I know is that this piece of geometry, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it'll have an edge here, 5. This is an n-gon. So let's create some, let's see, object mode, and interactive split tool or split poly tool once again. Not so much of a problem. And G to repeat that command. There we go. And I'm going to tie this edge up. So that's just anything. I can straighten that up in a minute. I'm going to tie this edge up here, like so. Okay, but that leaves me with some triangles here, so let's get rid of those. And again, quite simple really. Let's just calculate what we don't need. We don't need that. We don't need that. That leaves us with a quad. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And these are also quads, even though they look like triangles, because they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 4. These are 4 and 4, so we're pretty good there. We have, by running this edge out here, created an n-gon, and we can fix that too. So this happens when you're modeling sometimes, you know, you fix one set of problems only for another to crop up. But so at the moment we're looking pretty decent. Let's just go into object mode, and the only thing wrong now, because that center looks fine, it's holding, it's a little bit of pinching down here, and that's because we've got some, you know, untied edges up. So let's have a look at what we could do to fix this. Okay, so let's have a look at what we could do about this, because this is now a 5-sided n-gon, which is no good, and also it's leading to some rather nasty pinching here at this corner. So let's come down here, shall we, and let's just split. Let's use the interactive split tool and just split this out down here like so. Okay, and now I'm going to come down to probably about here, and I'm just going to draw the line around. So we come up the other side. Okay, and now this is 4-sided now. This is 4-sided, this is 5-sided, and this is a triangle. So there's a very easy fix for that. Let's once again, interactive split tool. Okay, so now we're a quad. 1, 2, 3, 4, quad. Quad, quad, quad. Okay, perfect. And let's have a look. Okay, oh, sorry about that, folks. Maya just froze up on there for a second. So, as I was saying, sorry if your video skipped a bit. Let's have a look. And we got some nasty bulges around here. So, I can see what's happening here. We've got no edge going up. So, let's take care of that. Let's just use the split poly tool. And let's put an edge that goes up to the top here. Let's zoom out a second. There we go. And let's get that like so. There's one there, and we'll need one for the other side. In fact, I should probably go ahead and connect that all the way up. Okay, and G. Let's just put one in here too. And we'll connect this down the bottom. Okay. One here, and that's not quite perfect, but it will be good enough for this. So now, again, let's have a look. Alright, much better. Okay, so there we go. There is our L cut into our leg. Our L shape, should I say. And now it's just a case of popping it on the cupboard. Right, so I mean, it seems like a lot of work, but without that L cut into it, it's never going to render right. We need this gap between furniture and leg. Okay, so we worry about the exact spacing of that when we come back in a second and finish off the rest of the detailing of the actual leg. So we'll add some more of these decorative elements. We'll add this fluting here and this fluting here. We'll put this taper in and, you know, add all the little knickknacks, doodads down the bottom to make it look more like a proper foot. Okay, so thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next part.